everyone, I'm Lilah McDonald, your host for NZ Business Magazine's podcast, Sustainably Ever After, proudly brought to you by the Milford Foundation, a charity investing in local communities to build a stronger Aotearoa New Zealand. I'll be exploring the incredible world of sustainability and entrepreneurship. On this podcast, I'll be talking to guests who are making waves in the world of sustainability, those who have built businesses with a purpose, those striving to make their companies greener, and those leading the charge for social and environmental change. Aidan Bartlett's journey has been an unexpected one. He originally joined a rock band as a drummer in high school before starting Designer Wardrobe in 2014 with his partner at the time, Donielle Brooke. Donielle had been diagnosed with cancer and, being unable to work, decided to begin selling her clothes to make money. Designer Wardrobe was initially a Facebook group started for her to do just that, but quickly gained unexpected popularity, reaching 7,000 members in the first 6 months. The rapid success of the early Designer Wardrobe proved there was a market for trading in second-hand fashion, and Aidan, always having an interest in entrepreneurship, decided to pursue it. Their first iteration of the website crashed within 10 minutes of launch due to high traffic. Designer Wardrobe is now New Zealand's most successful pre-loved fashion marketplace and sells approximately 1,000 items daily, processing over $1.5 million in monthly sales. The Milford Foundation, supporting education, youth and the environment to build a better tomorrow for all New Zealanders. Find out more at milfordfoundation.co.nz. Welcome to Sustainably Ever After. I'm your host, Lilah McDonald, and today I'll be talking to Aidan Bartlett, founder of Designer Wardrobe, about his journey to creating one of the largest online second-hand clothing markets in New Zealand.
I remember specifically saying to Donielle, let's just try this, and in 5 years are we going to look back and go, damn, why did we spend that $5,000 on that thing that didn't work? It wouldn't matter, as opposed to looking back and going, damn, we really should have tried that. Because maybe someone else would have done it. So yeah, I think all in all, it just made so much sense to do it rather than not.
Welcome, Aidan. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So you used to be a drummer in Midnight Youth, and now you run a very successful online pre-loved clothing store. Can you tell me how you got here? What was your journey?
Yeah, I've certainly had an unconventional journey. Music has been a massive part of my life. I started playing drums when I was just 9, and my dream was to join a rock band, essentially. And at high school, I met Simon and Matt and Nick, and we started what was the genesis of Midnight Youth, and that became my career until my early 20s. However, during that time, I was still, obsessed with entrepreneurship as well. And I, used to, in my younger years, I used to buy things and from overseas and sell them on Trade Me. And then I got into stock trading, got into Forex, and it was always something that I knew I'd come back to in a bigger way. But music was my primary love from 10 to 20. And that's from after that journey was where I really got into entrepreneurship.
So when did you get the idea for Designer Wardrobe? Did you realize fashion's impact on the environment and you wanted to try and help that? What was your story? Yeah,
well, I was, really lucky to have, my best friend and business partner, Donielle. And, we'd done businesses before. We actually started a jewelry label called Eyes of Common. And I remember coming home one day and Donielle was saying, I've started this Facebook group and it's called Designer Wardrobe. It's got 70 members. And we were super excited, wow, that's so cool. What is it? And essentially this had all started with Donielle's own personal journey, which was, she'd been diagnosed with thyroid cancer and she, didn't have insurance for day-to-day stuff. So she, not being able to work, had to sort of liquidate her closet in a way. So she started Designer Wardrobe as sort of her own group where it was like saying, hey, I've got all these dresses. Let me know if you'd like to buy them. And it sort of catapulted from there. And people who joined the group started listing their own thing, saying, oh, well, I've also got this dress. And that's sort of how that snowball effect happened of people just joining and then listing. And then because they were listing, they were telling other people about it. And then it was the sort of flywheel.
So if you don't mind me asking, I believe when you founded with Donielle, you two were dating at the time. And now you're separated. And I believe she owns the rental part of the business and you do the rest. Can you tell me a little about your journey together? Because I think it's probably quite common for entrepreneurs to start something with their partner.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice or, what was it like for you guys?
Yeah, man, Donielle's been a huge part of my life from very young. We were dating. We actually first started dating when we were 11. Funnily enough. Wow. Yeah. And then, we broke up as 11-year-old couples do, and then didn't talk to each other for about a decade. And we ended up getting back together. And we both had this shared love of fashion. I'd started getting really into designer fashion myself. So, our Saturdays were, going out and going to super ads and thrift stores and that sort of thing. And that's where we started thinking, hey, why don't we do something together that's on the business side? And that's where the jewelry label came from, and that's also where designer wardrobe came from. But look, it's not easy to do a business with your partner. Many people do it, and for many people it doesn't work. But for Donielle and I, it's really just come down to we've always wanted the best for each other. So even when our relationship didn't work anymore, we still wanted the best for each other, and we still certainly wanted designer wardrobe to work. So at the end of the day, we still had all that, and we were still really great friends. So that's how we've made it work. And even now we're still just as close as ever.
That's great. So like you mentioned, designer wardrobe was originally a Facebook group. What made you decide to, turn it into a website and to an app?
Yeah, it was really just seeing the popularity of the Facebook group happen organically. I remember seeing, in 6 months there was, I think, 7,000 members, and we were going, wow, okay, so people do want to use this. They do want to trade outside of, the likes of Trade Me. And I remember thinking, okay, like maybe this is something. And I was looking overseas and seeing, I think I was just looking for validation. Like, is there other platforms that have worked, against the big incumbents like eBay? And we were seeing, like in the States, there was Poshmark, there was Depop, there was Vinted, and then in Europe there was Vinted and a number of other marketplaces. So that sort of gave me a lot of confidence to go, okay, this is actually something that people want. And the Facebook group is awesome, but it's also not the best way to do this. So let's transition this into something else and take the leap, essentially.
So what was that process like? What were your first steps and how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, I remember at the time when we made that decision, like let's make a website. I think I had like $5,000 in my bank account because, we just got like a royalty payment from Midnight Youth. So that was like big bucks at the time. And I remember going, okay, well, I'm just going to spend this all on building like a really basic, essentially not a very good website, but let's just see if we can, get people to use it. And it took a couple of months. We teamed up with a freelancer who actually did a, really great job for the price. And we launched it, and it was a bit different back then because on the Facebook groups, you could essentially just do a post as an admin and everyone would see it, which is a bit different to now because, maybe 1 or 2% of people would see it. And I remember we did that post, and about 10 minutes later, the website just blew up because it couldn't handle, the amount of traffic that was going there. But at the same time, it was a really great problem because, we could see, okay, so we've got the Facebook group, which people are loving. We think that people could also love it as a standalone platform because, there's a lot more that we can offer in terms of the service. And hey, even though the website's broken, that's kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah, if you have a problem, you want it to be that there's too many people.
Too many people, exactly. Yeah.
So it was a success, which is great. But you invested a lot of your money that you had at the time. You said $5,000. Were you nervous at all that it wouldn't work?
Yeah, I think I was. I mean, I don't think I had I wasn't I'm probably more risk averse now than I was then. Essentially, like back then, it's like, okay, well, I suppose I can just move back in with my parents if it all, falls apart. But yeah, it certainly was a lot of money, and we weren't, of course, like anything, 100% sure. But I also felt like it was worth it. And I remember specifically saying to Donielle, like, let's just try this. And, in 5 years, are we going to look back and go, damn, why did we spend that $5,000 on that thing that didn't work? It wouldn't matter, as opposed to looking back and going, damn, we really should have tried that, because maybe someone else would have done it. So, yeah, I think all in all, it just made so much sense to do it rather than not.
Okay, so after you had the website up and it couldn't handle the traffic of people, what were your next steps after that?
Yeah, like we knew we needed to raise money, right? Because we wanted to build out the team. There was so much that we wanted to do. And even like just the cost of hosting the website was, a lot. We were just paying for everything personally, right? And at that time, we weren't able to make the site, essentially we just didn't want to make it a commercial business at that time. We just wanted people to be able to buy and sell, without incurring any fees, because we just wanted to prove people could do it, off the Facebook group. However, for it to be a real business, you do need to make money. And also I was very new to that world. So I remember talking to Donielle about, what the next steps are. And I knew I had to leave my job that I had at the time. I was actually a buyer at Warehouse Stationery, but I wanted to do this. And the easiest way to do that was to go through an accelerator, because, it gave me a reason to leave my job. And it meant that, I had a space to work, and there was a high chance of getting an investment because of the networks that those sort of things provide. So those were the next steps from when we could see it was shaping into being a real business.
So in the beginning, you weren't making money off this. So I'm guessing, how does it work now? Do you take a percentage of things that are sold off there?
Yeah, that's right. So we just run on the typical marketplace model, which is we take a success fee. So we don't charge for listing an item. So if you had, a dress and you wanted to list it on Designer Wardrobe, you don't get charged for that. You only get charged if it gets sold. And yeah, that's the way that we can, pay the credit card fees, pay for hosting, have a customer service team, have an office, all the rest of it. So yeah, that's was a scary move. When we did that back in sort of 2016, we were thinking, okay, like we've got the Facebook group, people love that. Now we've got the website, people also loving that. But then the third sort of step of it is that, will people pay for this? As in, will sellers be happy to pay for it if we can offer that value? And yeah, we were, really relieved essentially to see that, yeah, sellers are really happy to pay essentially a success fee if it means that they can sell something really quickly. And that's what we do.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to say, you've achieved a very high customer retention. And so what would you say the key to that is? Is it that they can sell things quickly? Like, what's your...
Yeah, it really comes down to, if you're a buyer, there's a lot of trust that is the core to Designer Wardrobe. So when you buy something from Designer Wardrobe, you're not paying the seller directly, you're actually paying Designer Wardrobe, and then we hold it in like a trust account. And then when you or whoever as the seller has sent the item and then it's delivered, then we release your earnings to you. And then as a seller, because of that trust factor, it means that there's a lot more buyers who are more willing to purchase items, and that means that you'll sell something really quickly. So typically on Designer Wardrobe, if you list an item, it will actually sell typically in 3 days or less. And we have a sell-through rate that's around 50%, which means 1 in 2 items sell on Designer Wardrobe, which is roughly 5 or 6 times what a normal marketplace is. So those two factors are what keeps people coming back, essentially.
So the name Designer Wardrobe kind of implies that, you have designer clothes on there, but I think you kind of have all types. So what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I mean, Donielle loves designer, right? And her wardrobe was basically all designer items. And the thinking was, at that time, it was a wardrobe, had designer items in it, so it was Designer Wardrobe. However, yeah, like the designer wardrobe of today is a lot different, right? We have everything from, H&M on the fast fashion side all the way through to Gucci. So we have a really broad range of things. So in saying that, though, like the core of what designer wardrobe is really those accessible designers. Like, for example, our biggest brand on designer wardrobe is Ruby. It's Shona Joy, Zimmerman, Nike, those sort of brands. So that's really where the most activity is happening. But we essentially do now cater to almost everything.
Okay, so the way I understand it is I think you started with kind of 4 parts to design a wardrobe. I'm not sure if it's the same now, but you had peer-to-peer sales, rentals, valet, and designer wardrobe stores, which I think have closed down now. Are they?
Yeah. We don't have the stores anymore. Yeah. Oh, it's you're talking about the big journey of designer wardrobe over the past 10 years. But we love trying things, right? Like that's the core of entrepreneurship, is you always want to try things, and some things don't work, of course. So we started as a marketplace, and that's essentially what we are now. We're a fully digital marketplace just for buying and selling. But through the journey, we've been a number of other things too. So renting, as you mentioned, that was a massive part of designer wardrobe in 2017, 2018. We actually started doing that because we were seeing people list items which were supposed to be for sale, but they were saying if you buy it, you're actually just renting it. So we were thinking, that's interesting. And again, I did my thing of like looking overseas, like, is anybody else doing this? And we saw, in the States, a relatively massive business called Rent the Runway, which were spearheading this new movement of renting, essentially dresses, instead of buying them for, events like balls or, horse racing, that sort of thing. So that's when we started looking at our own platform going, okay, well, we're in New Zealand, like it's not the biggest market. We're seeing good growth still, but, we want to be bigger, of course. And so it was a clear growth opportunity at the time, was to introduce renting into the platform. So we first started with like peer-to-peer renting. So for example, if you had a Shona Joy dress, you could list it on Designer Wardrobe for rent. But that was a really difficult proposition, because not only are you sending that dress out, but you're also wanting to get it back, right? So there's a lot of like reverse logistics, and that became really hard to manage as a platform. So we turned that off, but we still saw the demand for rental. So we ended up going, okay, well, how about we have this huge portfolio of dresses and we rent it out directly so that we can control the quality. So that's where the stores came in as well, was we saw this really great growth within renting online, but people wanted to come try it on. It's for, a big event like a ball or a horse racing or whatever. You want that sort of trust and that experience of going, okay, I've seen this dress, I've tried it on, it looks good. So the next step for us was to be bold with it and go, okay, well, let's open stores. And that's, what happened with rental, was it became a big part of the business. However, as you can imagine, COVID, really brought that to its knees. There were no events, and you couldn't even go to a store. So it became very difficult for us to maintain, especially store leases and that sort of thing, without any sort of horizon, when the lockdowns would end. So we had to make that really difficult decision to turn off the stores, and we kept renting going online, but we really were challenged trying to get that momentum back. But at the same time, we were seeing the online buying and selling part of Designer Wardrobe just really, catapult to new highs. So it really sort of came back to the beginning of going, okay, we started as this buy and sell marketplace, and I think that's what we are. We're a buying and selling marketplace. So that's when we made that decision to go, okay, we're just going to fully pivot back into what we are and what our specialty is, and essentially where our passions are, which is being a buy and sell marketplace, and that's what we are now. So we don't have rental, we don't have the valet service either, because again, where our specialty is giving sellers the ability to list an item, send it to a buyer, and have a great experience doing that. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, so during COVID, obviously the rental didn't work out so well, but were you saying like your sales of, buying and selling, were the numbers still growing, or did you have to adapt to survive?
Yeah, well, during 2016, 2017, 2018, we raised money from investors. So when you raise money from investors, there's naturally expectations that come with it, growth expectations. And we were certainly growing, but we just weren't growing, as fast as we needed to for a venture-based business. And, that was also, just because of the category of resale was also relatively new in New Zealand as well, like in terms of, being a specialized marketplace. And that's when we were looking for other avenues of growth, and that's where rental came in. And it wasn't until sort of COVID, post-COVID, where we saw that, that huge amount of growth for buying and selling, which wasn't just driven by COVID. That certainly catapulted it, but that growth has been sustained. And it comes down to a number of things. There's, the current cost of living crisis as well, which is just means people need to shop smarter, and they want to shop smarter. And then also just a mindset change on the impact of fashion. And then also just resale there's just been quite a culture shift within buying something pre-loved is more this like badge of honor. Like it's got its own story. Like, oh yeah, I bought this pre-loved. I got it off Designer Wardrobe. Like it's its own story rather than, I remember back in, 2014, 2015, it was a bit of a secret. Like, oh, I don't want to tell anybody about how I got this, pre-loved. It's my little secret. And now it's sort of completely changed to being something that people love talking about.
Yeah, I think that's great because I read that research shows resale fashion could be bigger than fast fashion by 2028, which is incredible. And I was actually going to ask about, the changes that you've seen, but obviously people's attitude. So you mentioned, how many people did you say you had on the Facebook group when you first started?
Yeah, we had, within 6 months, we had around 7,000.
7,000,
yeah.
So obviously you've had huge growth. Do you have any idea on what the numbers are now and how many people use Designer Wardrobe?
Yeah, we have around 325,000 members just in New Zealand now, which is really exciting. So it's around 1 in 10 women in New Zealand are essentially signed up to Designer Wardrobe. So yeah, that's a really epic milestone for us, and we don't take that lightly. And we're incredibly grateful that people have been along with the journey with us and really love the brand. So it's something that we certainly don't take for granted. So we're always trying to make Designer Wardrobe better. And yeah, we're still seeing that growth. We still see 100 to 150 signups a day. So people are really both loving resale as a category, but also we just always hear these amazing things about the brand Designer Wardrobe. People just really love it. Yeah,
that's great. Wow, yeah. So you mentioned 1 in 10 women use Designer Wardrobe. We were talking a bit about before this episode how men are less, likely to. Why do you think that is? And
yeah, oh man, I don't know. I'm a guy. I'm also quite bad nowadays. I'm sort of just, I usually wear a white t-shirt. So today to wear a grey t-shirt is actually, switching it up. Yeah. But yeah, we through no lack of trying. So we do have men's on Designer Wardrobe. But the funny thing is most of the men's items are actually being listed by women. And it's like, I'm listing my boyfriend's closet, or I don't know, there's a bad breakup or something like that. We do, however, have men listing and selling, and it is a growing category, but it's taken a lot longer than it has on the woman's side. So it's something that we're certainly not going to turn off, and something that we are seeing growing. But yeah, it's been quite a slow burn.
Wow, yeah. So I also read that you're processing over $1 million in marketplace sales monthly. Would you have any advice for other businesses looking to achieve scale like that?
Yeah, I think for us to get to that level has been really exciting. I actually think in January is about 1.5 million. So we're really seeing some really, really great growth with people, buying and selling. And, every day, we see sellers sell 800 to 1,000 items, so it's very cool to see. I think in terms of that scale, we really held on to what the core of the business was and why we could handle that much volume, and that has really come down to the trust side of the business. So having that trust that is actually scalable has been paramount to our success. So, for example, we have, DW purchase protection, and that has been largely automated now, right? So it's not like we've got someone, at the computer like looking, has this been delivered? We've invested a lot in the technology side in order to maintain that sort of scale. So if you are a business and you are seeing that sort of trajectory, it's certainly really important to look at, how can this scale? Like, what happens if this business tomorrow was 2 or 3x? What would I need? And trying to front foot that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because a lot of businesses, when they try and scale, they add a lot of things, like they would add rental maybe in stores like you did, but then obviously to keep your integrity, you got rid of those, which I think is really cool. Yeah.
I think it came down to what is the heart of designer wardrobe and what do people really engage with. And it's funny how we sort of came back to square one in a way, but also we're really glad that we tried all those things because, now we know, hey, that didn't work and that's fine. And it also really defined the purpose, of what designer wardrobe is.
So you started designer wardrobe because I guess you saw a need and an opportunity where, this could be something that really is useful and amazing. Yeah. But is the environmental side something that you think about? Because the fashion industry is a huge polluter, obviously.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, is that something that you think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it was a more gradual thing. It was through the designer wardrobe journey that I learned more about the impact of fashion and specifically fast fashion. And it was, being so exposed to, fashion that I saw, the amount of waste, that's happening, which is, it's been, really eye-opening. And it's crazy to think, right? Like, to create a pair of jeans, it takes 50 bathtubs of water. To create a cotton t-shirt, it's 2,500 litres. So there's those sort of statistics make it clear as to why, 10% of carbon emissions come from the textile industry and 85% of textiles end up in landfill. So it actually gave me a lot of, or it became like such a point of passion for me that we were doing the right thing and we were doing something that's really great, was by encouraging resale. Because, we know, like, if you have something and you sell it and that person who buys it uses that for 9 months, you've essentially reduced that footprint of that initial item's creation by 50%. So to your question, it was a very gradual awareness, but now it's given us, like, a clear mission of why designer wardrobe exists and why it's great that it is around.
Yeah, it's so important. And a lot of people also don't know this, but a lot of clothes, like majority of clothes that get donated, actually end up in landfill. Yeah. So I think it's really important and it's great that you're doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
So I believe you also work with fashion brands to help them become part of, the circular economy. How does that work?
Yeah, so we've partnered with North Beach and Max, specifically on an initiative we're calling Sell Later on DW. So it's still very much in its early days, but what the idea is, people of course buy new, and that's not changing. But the idea around Sell Later on DW is just to make it easier to sell that item at a later stage. So if you're on North Beach, for example, and you buy a rusty t-shirt or whatever, you can just turn the toggle on. There's a little toggle on the checkout that says Sell It Later on DW. And what that does is it saves all the information about that purchase, the sizing, the pricing, the imagery, etc., and then adds it to your designer wardrobe account. And then in 9 months or a year and you want to sell that item, you can just log on to designer wardrobe and just with one click, just sell it and just set the price. So the idea around that is just to reduce that friction when it comes to, listing something at a later stage. And it's a really great uptake. And we hope to add some more partners as well.
I love that idea. Do you have an idea about like kind of how many pieces of clothing you've saved from landfill?
Yeah, like every day, we're selling around 1,000 items a day. So typically an item of clothing, there's obviously outliers and all the rest of it, but around half a kg is the typical proxy you'd use for how heavy an item is. So that's around half a ton, every day. So around 150 tons every year of items is sold on Designer Wardrobe, and you can assume a decent portion of that would potentially have gone to landfill. So yeah, we're really proud of what that's helping propel, which is propelling items to not go to landfill.
Are there any other things you've done within Designer Wardrobe to be more sustainable? Because I guess there's one kind of not so sustainable part of the business, which is the packaging and the shipping of it. And obviously not every business is perfect. Like
Totally.
There's going to be some things. But have you done anything to try and combat that?
Yeah, look, we definitely don't do everything perfect. It's all about evolution, right? And just iterating and making things better. So we are proud to be partnered with NZ Post, who are carbon neutral, which is fantastic. In terms of packaging, we really encourage using packaging that has already been purposed for something else. So we have a little video on it as well. Like one of the ways so many people send items is, the countdown brown paper bags. So, you use that from, a countdown pickup or just from checking out. And if you, sell an item for $50, a lot of people just pop those in those bags, and just tape it up, and it seems to sort of last, a couple of days journey. So we do really try and encourage using sustainable packaging and also using NZ Post, since they are carbon neutral too.
That's great.
Yeah.
I guess that means people don't have to pay for as much packaging as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah,
the benefit.
Totally. Yeah.
How do you help educate people about the environmental impact of their fashion choices?
Yeah, like we do that in a, we don't try to be too, I think what I try to say is we don't try to scream about it too much, right? Because, we're really proud that, what Designer Wardrobe is, which is buying and selling and elongating the life of an item, is essentially really helping to build sustainability within the fashion industry. However, we have done a lot of research and published a lot of research around the impact of fast fashion, and something that we're also looking at potentially is giving insights when you actually buy something or sell something about how much that could offset. So that's something that's in the works too. But yeah, I think it just comes down to people already know a lot of the stuff, and they are wanting to positively change to try and offset some of that. But yeah, we also are working on making that more measurable too. For example, it'd be great, like if you could log into Designer Wardrobe and see that you've bought, these 10 things, and because of that, you've offset, X amount of carbon. So that's something that is in the pipeline.
Yeah. So you've also expanded into Australia.
Yeah.
What would you say is different about Australia's approach to sustainable and secondhand fashion? Are they as open to it as New Zealand? Yeah,
they are actually. Interestingly enough, just circling back to rental, renting is actually quite a big category in Australia, and actually gained prevalence before New Zealand. So yeah, they're certainly open to it. And also we worked with brands both on marketplace, both on marketplace and on rental too. So yeah, there's definitely, from what I can see, the same amount of awareness and appetite as well for resale there too.
What were the key factors in your decision to expand to Australia, and how did you have to adapt your business model?
Yeah, it actually a little bit similar to why we did a rental, which was we were just organically seeing people, list these items and say, well, you're not actually buying it, you're actually renting it. It was somewhat similar for why we expanded into Australia. We were seeing a lot of Australians sign up to Designer Wardrobe, both to sell and to buy. And the reason for that is there's just a lot of cross-pollination between brands, right? Like some of the big Australian brands are very prevalent on Designer Wardrobe in New Zealand and vice versa. And I know a lot of buyers in Australia are looking for Ruby, which is a little bit harder to find in Australia. So yeah, it just came down to seeing a lot of those inbound sellers and buyers from Australia signing up to Designer Wardrobe and going, okay, well, maybe we need to cater for these people. And the first question is, would Designer Wardrobe be better for everybody if it was one marketplace? For example, if I'm a buyer and I can buy from Australia, or if I'm a seller, I can sell to someone from Australia as well. And the answer to that was yes. And so, yeah, we just made, again, one of those bold decisions and open up the platform to Australia, and has been, it's been really great to see Australians embracing it and seeing some really good volume too.
What do you see in the future of fashion, and what do you want to see?
Yeah, I think it ties back to what I was saying before. I would love to see on designer wardrobe, here's all these things you've bought, here's all these things you've sold, and this is, how much, you've offset in terms of carbon. I think what I would love to see is just more visibility on that sort of thing, and that's not just from the resale part, but also brands as well. Just being able to see what are the measurable things here. If I buy this item, what is this actually costing from an environment perspective, or vice versa? And I think people would really value that. Yeah.
Have you seen any exciting things coming up in the sustainable fashion world? Any solutions that you think that excites you?
Yeah, I think in terms of designer wardrobe, AI is a really interesting aspect that you can integrate into designer wardrobe, and that's something that we're doing very slowly. But ultimately, what we want to do is reduce all the friction of selling so that it's easier for you to list something. And if it's easy, super easy to list something, then it means more people will do it, and it means more items are being, resold, and more offset in terms of the waste of fashion. So that's a really exciting development for us. So at the moment, you can actually list something and you can enter a brand, and with just the image and the brand, it can give you a description of the item. So that helps cut out a piece of it. But where we really want to get to is you can just upload an image and it knows the brand, it knows the color, it knows the description, and even suggests a price. So we're a little way off there, but those sort of advancements are what's going to really help catapult resale, I think, in terms of just reducing that friction as much as possible. Because that's one of the hardest elements as a seller, right, is actually finding the time to go, okay, I want to sell this, I'm going to open my closet, I'm going to take a picture, I'm going to set a price. So if we can just break down those walls, I think that's going to be really exciting for the growth of resale.
What do you want your legacy to be for future generations?
Yeah, the designer wardrobe vision is to have pre-loved in every closet in Australasia. So that's our North Star guiding light for designer wardrobe. And I would love to be my legacy in terms of designer wardrobe, really helped build that mission and pushed forward everybody embracing resale, not for every single item in their wardrobe, but just even a percentage. So yeah, if we got anywhere near that, that would be an excellent legacy.
It's amazing to see how far designer wardrobe has already come and how quickly they've grown. They have over 325,000 users, with every 1 in 10 New Zealand women using this marketplace. They're saving tons of clothing from going into landfill every year, and I would say contributing significantly to the surge in pre-loved fashion in New Zealand. Using a pre-loved item for just 9 months reduces its carbon footprint by 50%. Buying secondhand is an extremely simple thing you can do to make an impact, and designer wardrobe's mission to make this available for everyone is so important. It's so inspiring to see what Aidan has built, and I can't wait to see his vision come to life. If you want to find out more about designer wardrobe, go to designerwardrobe.co.nz or look them up in the App Store. Thank you so much for listening. That was Aidan Bartlett from Designer Wardrobe on Sustainably Ever After. A special thanks to sponsors of this podcast, the Milford Foundation, working to create a sustainable New Zealand for future generations. Learn more at milfordfoundation.co.nz. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned to nzbusiness.co.nz for more details on upcoming episodes and bonus podcast material. Let's make our world more sustainable, one story at a time. See you soon!